How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my week two score predictions video where I'm going to go through all the week two games, break down how I think the games are going to go, and give a score prediction for each game. So, jumping straight in here. There we go. The Thursday night game tonight, we got we got Commanders Packers. Should be a good first Thursday night football. I know technically it's sort of Thursday night football, but first Thursday night football, like short week for both teams, like the Amazon crew that Thursday night football. On paper this looks like a good game. I have the Packers winning 27-21. I feel fairly confident the Packers straight up are going to win the game. The score prediction, I'm a bit uncomfortable with. I know the Commanders scored exactly 21 last week, but I just feel like they probably should have had more. They didn't have that botch sequence at the end of the first half. They should have at least gotten three out of that. So probably should have at least had 24 points. But I just have a feeling like the Packers defense is going to carry over from. See, it's weird saying last week's. It's only Wednesday Thursday as I'm recording this, and the Packers just played Sunday, so it's just a couple days ago. But I feel like the Packers defense is going to carry over from last week against the Lions, and they're just going to play an extremely impressive game. I think the Commanders will get a decent amount of offense in there. I have them scoring three touchdowns, but I don't know. Packers at home, short week. Matt LaFleur, really good game planner in general, especially in a short week. Certainly helps to be the home team on a short week, especially when you played at home the prior week. You don't have to travel at all. I don't know. I just think Matt LaFleur is going to have a really good game plan. The offense is going to look good. I think Washington will definitely get a couple stops in the game at least, but I don't know. My gut's just telling me Packers in this game. They're 3.5 point favorites. That seems about right to me. I almost did 27-23 or 27-24 as my score prediction. Um, and if you didn't watch my week one score predictions videos, basically, obviously I had the score prediction under, and then the number above here is the spread that DraftKings sets, at least that, the time I make my score predictions here. So as of the recording of this Thursday at about 1 o'clock, a couple minutes short of 1 o'clock, the Packers are 3.5 point favorites. So I have them covering that, but I probably wouldn't bet on the spread. I'm probably going to bet on the Packers money line because I am fairly confident they'll win the game. If the Commanders win the game, I think their offense is going to have to do a bit better than I'm expecting them to, and same with their defense. I honestly, I think their offense might do a bit more than I'm predicting it to score wise, but I just think the Commanders defense, even though it looked great against the Giants, my gut's just telling me it's going to have a rough game, so they're going to have to overperform there. Yeah, I feel pretty good with the Packers. I think hopefully Josh Jacobs can have a good game. I need a big game from him in fantasy. That'd help my team out. Actually, I have him on one or two. I'm in so many leagues, I don't even remember how many teams I have him on, either one or two, maybe just one. I don't even remember at this point. I'm starting Debo in this game, so hopefully he can get involved. Had him on my bench last week. That screwed me over. But yeah, I'm gonna go Packers. My guts just feel strong with this one, so I'm gonna go Packers 27-21. Getting to the Sunday games here, Giants, Cowboys. Definitely going with the Cowboys. The Giants really need to win this game if they have any semblance of, being a decent team, record wise, because their schedule coming up is just an absolute gauntlet. They're going to really need to win this game. Except the Giants just looked awful. The Cowboys looked pretty good against the Eagles. They honestly, you can argue, should have won the game. Those Lamb drops were unlucky on their part. They're at home. I don't really see the Cowboys starting out 0-2. I know that's not a great reason to pick a team, but Dallas is the better team. They're at home. They know they really cannot fall to 0-2. That's going to really hurt their playoff chances. Probably going to be pissed off. They lost the first game. Everyone thought they were going to get killed that game. They nearly had it. I think Dallas bounces back. I think the offense has a similar output to how it did against the Eagles. Not necessarily that they're not going to score in the second half and do all their scoring in the first half. I think they'll, have a nice even 24 points, kind of evenly spread out throughout the game. I think their defense will play a solid game. I do think the Giants' defense could keep this close for them. Like, I think that might be the case the whole year. The Giants' offense, I don't think he's going to have too much success in this game. I think it'll have more success than it did against the Commanders. Cowboys 4.5-point favorites. I think they'll cover that, but I could see the Giants covering that as 4.5-point underdogs. If the Giants win the game, I think their offense is going to have to overperform because I do think the Dallas offense is going to have a good showing in this one. Russell Wilson's just going to have to look like, vintage Russell Wilson, but I have faith in the Cowboys. I'm pretty confident they're going to win this game. Dallas better team at home. Cannot fall to 0-2. Giants just a mess right now, per usual. Sorry, Dylan, if you're watching this. Just going to go with the Cowboys in this one. Seahawks Steelers. This could be an interesting game. I think this will be a defensive battle, like most of these most games that these two teams are going to take part of. Certainly, that was the case for the Seahawks against the Niners, and that was not the case for the Steelers against the Jets. That was a complete shootout that I don't think anyone expected a shootout. Some people were predicting a close game, but I don't think anyone predicted a shootout at all. I think the Steelers defense gets back on track. I think they're going to have a good showing in this one. I think they're going to make, the game difficult for Darnold. I think they're going to get to him with their pass rush, force him into some bad decisions. I think for the most part, they'll be able to stop the Seahawks run game. Clint Kubiak really likes to run the shit out of the football. I'm sure they'll have, some good runs. I'm sure Darnold will have some nice passes here and there. But I think for the most part, the Steelers will be able to contain them. I think the Steelers' offense is going to have a good showing in this one, not to the level it did against the Jets. I think the Seahawks defense will contain them a bit more. I think the Seahawks defense will keep this, within reach for them, but I just don't see their offense having too much success in this one. If they do win the game, I think it'll be because their run game is in specifics is just going to have to overperform how I'm expecting it to. They're going to have to get some good, some good rushes there. I could see that where, Walker and Charbonnet, actually, I should say Charbonnet and Walker, since friggin' Kenneth Walker realized he's on my fantasy team and he was outsnapped by friggin' Zach Charbonnet, for Christ's sake. But I could see, both of them or one of them getting a couple of big runs in their explosive runs, helping with the Seahawks offense. I could see the Seahawks having a good run game, and I think for the most part, the Steelers defense is going to, like I said, really limit the Seahawks there. I just trust the Steelers more at home. I think, I don't know. I just trust them more at home. I just simply think they're the better team at home. They're 3-point favorites. I think that's about right. I have them covering that. I could see this being a 3-point game, but that's all it needs to be, unless the spread gets updated, which a lot of the time it bounces back between like 3.5 for games, like this. So I honestly might take that now, so it doesn't bounce up to 3. I would 3.5. I don't know if I'd bet on, but 3. I think the Steelers will win the game by 3. So I might bet on the spread there for the Steelers to cover. But Steelers. I'm gonna pick them to win this one, 23-17. Rams Titans, no doubt in my mind, the Rams should win this game. I would be surprised if the Titans. The only logic that suggests the Titans should win this game is because it's week 2, and the first couple weeks of the year, every team's trying to find their identity, their footing, and there's some upsets that no one really could predict. Last year the Raiders beat the Ravens. It made no logical sense that the Raiders would win that game going into it, especially because the Ravens were at home. They had lost to the Chiefs in the opener. They were 0-1. No one thought they were going to go 0-2 to the Raiders, and that's exactly what happened. So, you can argue, especially the Titans being at home, maybe, this game has upset written over it because of the, the potential for the uncertainty the first couple weeks of the season. The Titans defense looked really good last week. I do think the Titans defense is going to have another good showing. in this one. I think that'll be what keeps this game relatively close. I had the Rams winning by 8, 24-16. They're 5.5 point favorites. I would say that's about right. I have them covering that. I could see the Titans offense, and this is just kind of a gut feeling, kind of having a decent game in this one. Cam Ward and company, after a rough showing last week, they moved the ball, get a couple touchdowns, get a couple big plays on the field. The crowd's feeling good. Maybe they can pull off the upset. But I just trust the Rams offense more. I think they'll do better than the Broncos offense did last week. I don't think Stafford's going to be as reckless as Bo Nix was turning the ball over in some of his throws he made last week. Um, what else? What else? What else? Yeah, I just trust the Rams a bit more. Do think the Titans defense could keep it close. So the Titans do win this game. I wouldn't be. I would be surprised, but not shell shocked, just because, again, as I keep talking about here, first couple weeks anything can happen. And my gut's kind of telling me the Titans offense randomly is a good game, but I think the Rams defense is going to contain them. I just can't pick the Titans in this one. I just trust the Rams more. I'm going to pick them to win 24-16. Bills Jets. This is a tough one. So, well, tough in regards to the score. I think the Bills are going to win the game for sure. The score, I'm a bit iffy. I do think the Bills are going to score a lot. I was kind of back and forth between like 27, 28, and 31. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills score more than 31. If they score like 34, maybe, 34 plus. I wouldn't be surprised. I think the Jets defense will get at least a couple stops, but I feel good with around 31 for the Bills. The thing that I'm uncertain on is how many points the Jets are going to score. I mean, on paper they should not score a lot, but how the Bills defense looked absolutely terrible last week. It was sort of the Jets, but the Bills defense looked terrible last week, and the Jets offense looked phenomenal. Now, do I think the Jets offense is going to look like that every week? No. I think the first couple weeks it's going to look better than it will as the season progresses. Once we get probably week 5 on, I think the Jets offense is going to regress a decent amount, and they're going to kind of look like the offense most people expected them to look like going into the season. It's just hard. I mean, the Bills' run defense was not good last season. Statistics I know suggest otherwise. I think they're like the 4th ranked run defense or something like that. Might be making that up, but I feel like that's accurate what I just said there. But the reason is because the Bills were, up multiple scores on most teams they played last year. So teams are having to, go pass heavy to try to catch up. So they didn't really run it that much on the Bills. But we saw, like, Derrick Henry in particular last year in the regular season absolutely killed them. We saw when teams committed to the run against the Bills, for the most part, they had a good amount of success. Derrick Henry, even though the Ravens lost last week, absolutely killed them. And yes, he had that crucial fumble, but he still killed them in the run game. The Jets offense, a big reason why they played really well last week is because of the run game. Fields is scrambling. He got out of a bunch of sacks. I think this game, I don't think he's going to elude as many as he did last week. I think the Bills will do a better job than the Steelers did last week of actually bringing Fields down. But Breece Hall and company could have some rushes that, not necessarily break free for a touchdown, but break free for a big gain. I think they'll have a couple explosive runs. I think this game will be relatively close but I think the Bills will kind of comfortably be up like around 10-14 in that range most of the game. But the Jets are going to be hanging around for most of it, but the Bills, hang on at the end, win by 11. I have them. I feel like that. I kind of feel strongly that's how this game is going to play out. I don't think the Jets offense will be as good as it was last week, but I think it'll be, solid still. I just think the Bills offense is going to just absolutely destroy the Jets defense this game. But Jets, I think even though they'll be 0-2, it'll kind of be the theme throughout their year where they're not going to have a good record, but they'll be competitive. Push some good teams the distance, but they'll lose most of the games. But Jets. I don't know if I should start Fields this week over Nix and Goff in like 2 separate weeks. I had Fields on the bench in favor of those guys, and that obviously completely screwed me. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that one. But yeah, if the Jets do win this game, I actually feel strongly the Bills are going to score 30, maybe not 30 plus, but at least like 27. So either their defense is going to have to perform better than I'm expecting it to, which I don't think will happen. But I do see a scenario where it's another shootout and the Jets are just going to have to outscore the Bills, which I just can't really see happening. But I wouldn't be shell shocked. But yeah, just the Jets are going to have to perform like they did last week offensively to win the game. Bills 6.5 point favorites, big road favorite. I have them covering, but I would not be too surprised if this is like a 3-4 point game, maybe a 7 point game, things like that, something around there. But I have the Bills covering the spread, winning the game 31-20. Oh boy, my team, Patriots, on the road in Miami against the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins last week looked like the worst team I've seen in my entire life. They looked like a complete disaster. But then on the flip end, my team, we didn't look as bad as the Dolphins, but we didn't look too good either, especially in the second half. Uh, the Dolphins at home, they're 1.5 point favorites. Teams are evenly matched roughly. Vegas with the line usually gives them, I think, around like 3 points or like 2 or 3 points. So this is borderline a pick 'em game. The Dolphins being at home. If we were home, I almost am 100% sure we'd be favored with the spread. Technically, I have us covering the spread because I have us winning the game as underdogs. So all an underdog needs to do to cover the spread is either a lose or yeah is either a lose by that spread. So in this point, well, in this example, we'd have to lose by 2 points because you round up. If we lose by 2 or less points, so obviously 1 or 2 points you would cover, or if an underdog just wins the game, they cover the spread. So I have us covering the spread because I have us winning the game by 3. Honestly, like just based off how awful the Dolphins looked last week, we should dominate the game. However, I do think the Dolphins are going to play a lot better than they did last week. I One thing I am a bit concerned about. It looks like Gonzo's still going to be out, and Terrell Williams, our defensive coordinator's some medical issue going on, which I'm starting to get a bit concerned about because this is now the second medical incident where he's had to step away from the team. So hopefully, first of all, obviously, hopefully he's okay. But I believe our inside linebackers coach is going to be calling the defense. I'm not too concerned in that perspective that it's losing Terrell Williams is going to cost us like the game or anything. Just one game. But hopefully, he can come back next week against the Steelers. But Gonzo being out, I do think Hill and Waddle are going to be a lot more involved than they were last week. I think that's just going to be what keeps this game close, honestly. I think Hill and Waddle are going to get the typical deep shots they have been the past couple of years under this offense of the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel. And it's going to look, like how the Dolphins have looked the past couple of years, kind of how we expected their offense to look this year, rather than the abomination that was last week for them against the Colts. So I think, yeah, Tua is going to get some deep shots involved with Tyreek and Waddle. Gonzo being out is going to hurt us there a bit. Um, what else? What else? What else? Oh yeah, one good thing for us, even though we didn't look too great that last week, the pass rush was great against the Raiders. The Dolphins' offensive line, I believe, has 2 starters out, and apparently, from what I saw, they're saying that the tackle, the right tackle, I believe they're starting was like a traffic cone in the preseason. So obviously that's good for us because if you pressure Tua, that's I guess you pressure any quarterback. That's a key to beating any team, especially Tua. I feel like you pressure him, take away his first read, he's going to be in some trouble. So if we can pressure Tua, that could go a long way for us. I think we'll definitely get a couple sacks, force some punts from long yardage situations. Um, yeah, that'll be a key for us. Honestly, I think if we could get the Dolphins in like first or second down into a long yardage situation from a sack to take away the early deep shots, because obviously if it's third and long, they're probably going to have to throw the ball deep unless they play conservative, just check it down, play for better position for the punter, give him some more breathing room. Offensively, I think we'll have a good game. I don't think we're going to light it up and score 30 plus. I think the Dolphins defense will play better than it did last week. But I think one thing that we're going to implement in this game is we're going to run the ball more. a lot of talk about how May threw 40, I think it was 46 passes, if I remember right off the top of my head. That's way too much. Some talk about are we throwing too much on May's plate? I think we're going to commit to the run game a lot more. And I think we're going to have some good runs in this game. Make it a bit easier for May. I think May will have a decent day passing. He'll have a good day passing. I think the run game's going to come alive for us compared to last week. But I think the Dolphins will probably get some stops in the red zone, hold us to field goals. That's why I have 23 here. I originally had 24-20, but I'm like, yeah, the Dolphins probably get a couple red zone stops. So we'll have a nice combination of touchdowns and field goals there. Hopefully, Borregales doesn't miss a kick like he did last week. We signed Romo to the practice squad. So Borregales, he probably knows he's not necessarily on the hot seat, but pressure might be mounting a bit for him. I'm surprised, honestly, we didn't go with Romo as our kicker to start the year because he looked great, and then Borregales was a bit shaky in the preseason and training camp apparently. But I think we just went with him so we could say we didn't waste the draft pick because we drafted him pretty early, the fourth round, I believe. Or not the fourth. What the hell was it? The sixth round? Okay, now this is gonna drive me insane. I gotta look this up. Um, let's see here. Um, yeah, okay, the sixth round. I had a feeling it was the sixth round. Tyler Loop, I believe, was the fourth, right? Now I gotta look this up. Um, oh, Tyler Loop was also the sixth round. Oh, we drafted Borregales before Tyler Loop. Well, that sucks. Oh, well, who knows? Just one game for each of them. But Tyler Loop, made all of his kicks except that extra point, which you can argue swayed momentum in that game. But anyway, don't want to jump the gun there. But Loop looks better than Borregales so far. But anyway, yeah, I was winning a tight game. I mean, if we lose this game, I'm going to be a bit concerned. Now, on paper, you can just say, well, the Dolphins looked like an abomination last week, so they really should lose this game. I mean, yes, that's part of the reason I'm going to be concerned if we lose this game, and also we'll be 0-2, which I was making the playoffs, so we start 0-2. That's obviously not going to be too good for us. But week to week in the NFL, just an abomination for the Dolphins week one. I think they're just putting that behind them, flushing that down the toilet, just looking to this week. And they beaten us. Jesus. The last time we beat them was the second meeting in 2022. So what is that? Six times in a row they've beaten us? Or no, hang on. So they obviously 23 twice we lost. So what, four times they've beaten us in a row? Off the top of my head, if I remember right. Um, so yeah, I mean, Dolphins have had their number lately, is what I'm trying to say there. Obviously, we always struggle in Miami for whatever reason. Dolphins, they just want to get that sour taste out of their mouth from last week. I do think it'll be a close game. I don't think we'll blow them out. I don't think they'll blow us out. I think regardless, even if we lose this game, it'll be close, like within a one-score game. I don't know. Vegas kind of probably has the same mindset as me, basically labeling this as close to a pick 'em game, just giving the Dolphins a point and a half because of home field there. Yeah, I think again, Dolphins. I think a good mix of offense and defense for both teams. The Dolphins win this game. I think it'll just be because an extra deep shot or two will be the difference for Hill or Waddle probably. But I feel good around this score prediction. I really hope my team can pull this off, and we'll get the Miami game out of the way week 2. So that'd be nice as well. But yeah, I have the Patriots winning the game 23-20. Jags Bengals. This is going to be an interesting game. The Bengals are favored by 3.5. That seems about right. I originally had them covering. I had 27-21 in the Bengals' favor, but then I was thinking more. I'm like, I think the Jags we had a bit more offense, so I gave them 3 more. I gave them 24. I think the Bengals offense is going to get back on track from last week. I think it'll look like the Bengals offense we expected it to coming into the season. The Jaguars, their defense looked phenomenal last week, but my guts just told me the Bengals offense gets back on track in this one. The Bengals defense looked, solid last week. You can argue, Flacco on the offense moved the ball better than the score indicated, but Bengals defense definitely made some strides. And again, it's just one game against arguably, one of the lesser offenses in the league, you can say. But Bengals Browns games are always close for the most part. I feel like the Bengals definitely their defense looked better than it did last season. Last week, I think the Jags are going to have a good amount of offense in this one, but I think the Bengals. I just trust their defense get that extra stop. If it's a shootout, I trust the Bengals offense more than the Jags, especially with the Bengals being at home. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Jaguars won this game. Honestly, I have them technically covering the spread with this score prediction. So they'd have to lose by 4 to not cover. So I have them covering, only losing by 3 here. I wouldn't bet on the spread in this game. I could see it playing out in a bunch of different ways, score wise. But yeah, if the Jags win this game, I think they're just gonna have to outscore the Bengals. So their defense is gonna have to be the one to get this. Well, obviously that sounds obvious. They're gonna have to outscore them. That's an obvious statement. But I just mean I think it's gonna be a sort of a shootout, borderline shootout. I think they're gonna have to win the shootout, and that their defense is gonna have to get that extra stop compared to the Bengals defense. I could see the Jags maybe scoring like 31. If they get to 31, I think there's a good chance they win the game. But I don't know. I just trust the Bengals more at home in this one. Should be an entertaining game, but I'm going to go with Cincy in this one, 27-24. Niners Saints. Now, you look at this and immediately are like, why are the Niners only favored by 3 points? Well, it's because they have a bunch of injuries. The big one is Purdy. He's out 2 to 5 weeks. They just announced a couple hours ago. So it's my old guy, Mac Jones, starting for the 49ers. This game, presumably, and for the next couple weeks until Purdy can come back. Kittle is also out. Jennings, I don't know about him. I don't know if he can play. Even without those injuries, I feel fairly confident in the 49ers. But the Saints, you can argue, they certainly are getting a break with the 49ers injuries. So maybe they can somehow pull this one off. The thing is, though, the 49ers, I actually do think the Saints defense will keep this relatively close. Mac Jones will probably make a bad decision, throw a pick or two. The Niners will probably have some sloppy drives I feel like they do every game. This will be one of the games where the Niners kind of dominate, and it'll still be relatively close throughout, I think. So the Saints defense, I think, could keep them in the game. The problem for them is the 49ers defense, I think, is going to give them a really tough time in this one. Robert Saleh coached a phenomenal game against the Seahawks last week, really kept bailing the offense out. And I just really have a hard time seeing Spencer Rattler and company. Even though they looked decent last week, I think they moved the ball a bit better than the score indicated against the Cardinals. I just have a hard time seeing the Saints offense having a good amount of success against this 49er defense. If the Saints do win the game, like I said, I do think their defense is going to, keep it within a reasonable reach. Like the Niners will probably be up like 10-14, I feel like, most of the game. But the Saints defense, I think, will keep it relatively within reach. If Purdy and Kittle and the Niners weren't as injured, I think the Niners would blow the doors off the Saints. So the injuries, I think the Saints defense will keep it relatively close. Honestly, I think they're just going to have to. Like I said, I really don't think the Saints offense is going to have too much success this game. I think if the Saints have any chance, they're going to have to get a great field positioning off like a turnover from Mac Jones or someone for the Saints offense, maybe a big punt return, things like that. They're just going to have some wacky things happen in their favor to win the game. The 49ers, I am, even with the injuries, I'm picking them to cover the spread. If they only win this game by 3, I would be a bit surprised. even with all these injuries, I think they'll at least win the game by at minimum like 7, but I honestly like 10, I want to say. So I might jump on this spread now. I'm sure it's going to fluctuate between now and Sunday, but I might bet on this spread now. I feel pretty good with the 49ers in this one. 24-13. It'll be good to see Mac Jones start for the 49ers. That's been kind of a big what if. That was the guy Shanahan apparently wanted in the draft, and obviously the Patriots took him. Obviously, you can say Mac Jones isn't what we had hoped him to be. Obviously, as Patriots fans, not what we had hoped him to be. But from a draft perspective, he certainly probably isn't what the teams had hoped he would pan out to be. But solid backup. He looked like typical Mac Jones in the preseason. Some good passes, some bad boneheaded passes. That'll probably translate over to this game and however many games he starts in Purdy's place. But Mac Jones, I guess Kyle Shanahan eventually got his guy. But yeah, I'm going with the 49ers 24-13 here. Browns Ravens. This is a tough one to pick the score. I'm really confident the Ravens should win this game. Although, like I said, they did lose week 2 to the Raiders at home last year. In the Browns, not one of the better teams in the league. People expect them to be at least. Although they really should have won last week. They outplayed the Bengals. They got very unlucky against the Bengals last week. And the Browns, they did beat them last season. And then even the second game around where they basically tanked and started Bailey Zappi week 18, their defense kept it relatively close. And it was, I believe, a one-score game in the fourth quarter at one point. It was either that or like a 14 or a 10-point, something like that. The Browns got a touchdown, made it a bit interesting, but then the Ravens pulled away. The Browns defense, I think, is going to be really good this season. I think it is legit. So I could see the Ravens just completely, having a good amount of success offensively and just putting up a shitload of points, like 34 plus. But I think the Browns defense is going to make the game relatively respectable. I had them holding the Ravens at 27. Obviously, that's not great, but not blowing the doors off them. The amount of points the Browns score is what I'm very iffy on. I honestly, I'm stuck in between if the Browns can have a good game offensively or if they're going to look really bad. I'm stuck in between. They scored 16 last week. It should have been 20 if they didn't miss the 4 points from the kicks. And you can argue even more because they might have scored on both those drives Flacco threw picks on, but both the picks were unlucky. They were tip passes. He hit his receivers right in the hands on them. I think the Ravens defense is going to be better than the Bengals defense, though, at least this season. So yeah, I'm stuck on if the Browns, or how many points they're going to. The spread is obviously enormous. 11.5-point favorites. Again, like I said, I'm really confident the Ravens are going to win this game, but are they going to cover the spread? I don't have them covering the spread, but I would not at all be surprised if they do. I'm staying away from that spread. It's big spread games are difficult because the team is very likely to win the game, but are they really going to win it by that much? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But Vegas sets the line that big because, well, I guess because they think they're going to win the game by that much, but also because they know a lot of people probably aren't going to bet on the team's money lines. So, a lot of risk for a little reward. So if you bet on the spread, you could, get some more money back, but you could get a greater return, but the risk is a bit more. Yeah, if the Browns do win this game, like I said, I do think their defense could keep it relatively close. Their offense is just going to have to overperform, which I guess is possible because the Ravens' defense looked awful last week. Once Josh Allen come and he really had to get past the ball and get the ball moving down the field, they did. So I could see the Browns having a good amount of success offensively. I mean, Winston, when he started last season, he absolutely torched them. I don't think they'll do that this game, but I could see Joe Flacco and the Browns offense having a good amount of success. That's going to be the key, just them having a good offensive game, because I do think their defense will play a respectable game in this one. But I feel pretty good with the Ravens. They're going to be pissed off that they lost that game. to the Bills. They blew it. They're going to take that on the Browns, I'm sure. Just that alone makes you want to say they win like 34-17 and cover that 11.5 point spread. But I'll stick with my 27-17 prediction here. Browns, like sort of like the Jets, I think will be bad record wise. It'd be a competitive bad team, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one, 27-17. Okay, I'm going to get a quick sip of water here. Okay, Bears Lions. Obviously, a lot of story in this one. Ben Johnson's return to Detroit. I feel my gut's telling me I to pick the Lions, and I feel fairly comfortable with them in this game. They're 6 point favorites. I'm honestly surprised the line's a bit big, but maybe Vegas is with me. Just a good, strong gut feeling the Lions going to win this game. The Lions, I do think, are a better team than the Bears. And I do think that they have kind of higher hopes and expectations in the Bears this season. The Lions looked awful last week. The Bears looked better, even though they blew the game. They looked better than the Lions did last week. But the Lions at home, I think they're going to be pissed off and embarrassed at how week one went. Chance to bounce back. My gut just tells me their offense that had a really rough showing. I think their offense is going to really have an effective game in this one. And the Lions defense didn't play awful, like god awful last week. It actually played like it played bad at the start, then kind of settled in, and then the Packers ended up getting a score at the end of the game. They got the touchdown and that field goal to really ice things. The Bears offense, I think we're going to see kind of what we saw against the Vikings. We're going to see some good, and then we're going to see some bad, some blown opportunities. I think that's going to be how the Bears offense operates this game. My gut just tells me the Lions are going to win comfortably, so I have them winning 27-17. I do think my gut really feels strong that the Lions offense bounces back, has a good game in this one. But well, actually, maybe the Bears obviously get their top two corners and get some guys back on their on their defense. Obviously, that'll help them. That'll be a boost to their defense. Maybe the Lions score a bit less. If the Bears do win this game, I think randomly they're going to put up a shit ton of points, like 30 plus. I could see that where I think there's going to be some weeks this season where the Bears offense looks great, and there's going to be some weeks it looks bad, and there's going to be some weeks in between, like we saw Monday night against the Vikings. If they win this game, I think this will be one of the games where everything clicks and they just put up a shitload of points. And you can say maybe it's because Ben Johnson knows the Lions. So he takes advantage of that. So the Bears win this game. I think they're randomly going to put up a shit ton of points, but I feel pretty good with the Lions in this game. I'm going to pick them 27-17, bounce back win for them. Denver, Indy. This is a tough one. I'm honestly a bit surprised Denver's favored this one. They're favored by 1.5. I figured Indy might be favored by like a point, but Denver's favored on the road. I have them winning the game 24-20. I actually feel fairly good that the Broncos are going to win the game. Would not at all be surprised if the Colts win this game. But my gut just is telling me Denver wins in a close one. I think the Colts offense is going to come back down to earth a bit from how it performed against the Dolphins week one. I do think they'll have a decent game. I have them putting up 20. I think they'll have a couple good drives, good mix of the run pass game, some good runs, some good passes. I do think there'll be a decent mix of that. I just think Denver's defense is going to play another really good game. They're going to force Daniel Jones into a bad play or two, and that'll be a big difference in the game. I think they'll get to Daniel Jones, the pass rush, may get him down, get a couple sacks. That'll be a big difference. Basically, I think Denver's defense is going to go a long way in helping them win the game. If Bo Nix plays as bad as he did last week, the Colts should win the game. But I think Bo Nix is going to clean up his performance from week one. And I do think Denver's offense will have a decent amount of success. Lou Anarumo, really good performance last week, obviously. I think his defense kind of is an up and down game this one. I think they'll get some stops. They'll probably get a key stop late, and it's like, oh, the Colts are going to win it. Then Denver's defense is going to, get a clutch stop to help them win the game. yeah, I think they'll have probably some moments where it's like, oh my God, yep, like, well, it was a fluke last week. Yep, Lou Anarumo, remember he coordinated the god awful Bengals defense last year. Then they'll get a couple stops, and Big Sean said, yep, just kidding. The Colts defense is back in business. So I think kind of a bit of an up and down game for the Colts defense. Yeah, I just think a good mix of offense and defense for both teams, and my gut's just telling me Denver's defense gets a big play, like a big sack, or just a big defensive play to help them win the game. If the Colts win the game, I think they're going to have to contain Denver's pass rush a bit, a bit better than I'm expecting them to. And their offense is going to have to overperform a bit more than I'm expecting it to. If Indy hits like 27 points, I think they'll win the game. That'll be a good target number for Indy to score in this one. If they hit 27, I think they'll win. But I don't know. I'm just picking Denver. My gut's telling me that. I'm gonna roll with the Broncos here, but would not at all be surprised if the Colts win. I think this is a tight game either way. Actually, I could sort of see a scenario where maybe the Broncos kind of hammer the Colts and Daniel Jones looks like Daniel Jones, but I do think it'll be a close game either way. Oh, hang on. This is gonna bother the shit out of me. That I had the little white mark there. The Panthers. I'm gonna fix that real quick. Um, okay, there we go. Technical difficulties. Panthers, Cardinals. Well, the Cardinals really should win this game fairly easily based off what we saw from the Panthers. The Panthers looked absolutely terrible last week. Bryce Young looked god awful. The offense looked abysmal. But for whatever reason, the Cardinals have trouble with the Panthers in recent years. Last year, we saw the Panthers beat the Cardinals. It was a shootout, from what I remember. Right? I know it went to overtime. I know the Panthers won, but the Cardinals at home, they should win the game. But honestly, part of my gut wants to randomly pick the Panthers to somehow pull this off, which it doesn't make too much sense. Last week, the Panthers looked so awful. The Cardinals, you can say they should have won more than they did against the Saints, but Saints could be potentially sneaky in some games, especially week one. So I'm not too concerned there from the Cardinals' perspective. I think the Cardinals' offense has a good game. The run game hurts the Panthers in this. The Panthers' run defense was awful last season, like historically awful, and it looked awful against the Jaguars too. I think Kyler, James Conner, Trey Benson, all the run game for the Cardinals gets going. It has a good game in this one. I have the Cardinals getting 25. I think they'll have a solid offensive game. At the Panthers, that's the see now them putting up 17. That's another thing I'm back and forth on is how many points they're going to score, because I mean they put up 10 last week, and the Cardinals defense I think is going to be better than the Jaguars defense. So are they really going to score 7 more than they did last week? That's a question I have. I have it being a one possession game. I do think, I don't know, my gut just kind of tells me, even though it shouldn't be, that it will be. Technically, I have the Cardinals covering. They're 6.5 point favorites. That's kind of a big spread. If the Panthers pull the game off, their defense is just going to have to play better than I'm expecting it to, or their offense is just going to have to overperform. Simple as that, I think. Just click. Look like they did the second half of last season. I don't know what the hell happened to them last week against the Jaguars, but oh boy, maybe trading Adam Thielen wasn't the best idea. I didn't, I thought that it would hurt them, but not to the level of looking as bad as they did last week. But yeah, I don't know. I feel good with the Cardinals. Definitely would be an upset if the Panthers pulled this one off. But like I said, the Cardinals, for whatever reason, always have trouble with the Panthers in recent years. So maybe the Panthers got that going for them. I mean, we saw the Panthers last year. They were 0-2. They switched to Dalton. And, pretty much most people expected the Raiders to win, and the Panthers just blew the doors off them. I think the Cardinals are certainly this year, but then the Raiders were last year, by a landslide, but or a long shot, but especially, 2 weeks into the season. Or rather, I think especially, overall this season, but 2 weeks into the season, I think they're better than the Raiders were at that point, week 3 last season. Yeah, I feel pretty good with the Cardinals. Just a better team at home, better offense, defense. Coaching's better. Cardinals defense is pretty solid. I think they really should have a good amount of success. I feel pretty good with the Cardinals winning 25-17 in this one. So again, scoring a bit iffy on, but I feel good with the Cardinals straight up winning. Super Bowl rematch. This is the game of the week. This one I am very. I'm not too confident with the Eagles in this one. I honestly think this is a coin flip. The Eagles really should win the game. They're the better team. Obviously, we saw in the Super Bowl they matched up extremely well with the Chiefs, except they did lose a lot of people. Mainly their offense basically stayed the same, but their defense obviously lost some guys. That was very evident last week. They're getting Jalen Carter back this game, so that's a boost for them. The Eagles are favored on the road, which honestly I'm a bit surprised by. Everyone's saying is this the beginning of the Chiefs' downfall? If they lose this, they'll be 0-2. Love hearing that talk as a Chiefs hater. That honestly, I think I'm very iffy on this game. I honestly think 27-24 is going to be the score one way or another. The Eagles winning 27-24, but if the Chiefs win, I think it'll be 27-24. I think the Chiefs offense is going to look good in this game. That's what my gut's telling me. I think they'll have a really efficient game. Honestly, I think this might be how the game plays out. I think the Chiefs might get off to a fast start and say, oh, the Chiefs are back. The Eagles offense is going to score a touchdown. Their defense will, click it in gear. And then the Eagles kind of come from behind to win the game. I think that honestly might be how this game plays out. Or the Eagles get off to an early lead. It's like Jesus, like the Chiefs, like they really, not that they're collapsing, but they are really showing some potentially concerning signs. And the Chiefs fight back, but they come up a bit short. I think those two scenarios are very likely. I do think the Chiefs off. My gut just telling me they have a bounce back game. Their offense looks really good. It didn't. What they put up 21 last week, but their offense did not look good for most of the game. I think they'll have a pretty efficient game offensively. But the Chiefs' problem is I think the Eagles are going to have a better game offensively. The Chiefs' defense did not look good last week, and every time that Jalen Hurts has played the Chiefs defense, he's absolutely torched them, and the Eagles always have success, even in the games they lost. Even if you go all the way back to 2021 and that regular season it was a shootout, but the Eagles put up 30 plus, and I remember. Then obviously the Super Bowl in 23, the Eagles put up 35, and then obviously, well, actually, then the regular season, they didn't, light them up, but they, want to say they put up what 17 or obviously not a lot that game, but then there was the Super Bowl. Obviously, they put up 40 on them. Some of them came from a pick six on Cooper DeJean, but their offense was humming that whole game for the most part. Really, with the exception of the regular season meeting in 23, is what I'm trying to say here is that the Eagles' offense absolutely torched the Chiefs, and the Chiefs' defense did not look good last week. And even though the Eagles' defense didn't look too great last week, well, I guess in the second half it did, but their offense looked great. Even though they didn't score any points after the break, their offense was, it's kind of like this a similar thing with the Eagles. They have a tendency to like stall out and look bad in some games, but when they really need to get the ball moving, they can get it moving. It's been a theme I've noticed with the Eagles. They stall out a decent amount offensively, but they can be explosive at the snap of a finger. I don't know. I just think that the Eagles offense is going to slightly outperform the Chiefs offense. Both offenses will play good. I just trust the Eagles defense, even though it is not as good on paper as it was last season, especially the Super Bowl between these two teams. I just trust them to get a key stop more than I do the Chiefs defense in this game. The Eagles offense matching up with the Chiefs defense, I think is going to be what gives the Eagles that extra edge in this game. If the Chiefs win this game, like I said, I would not at all be surprised. I honestly was tempted to pick them just because I don't think they'll start out 0-2. But I'm going to slightly lean with the Eagles here. If the Chiefs win the game, I think it'll be because their offense performs a bit better than I'm expecting it to, and their defense. I think it's mainly gonna, like I said, I think their offense is gonna play solid this game. I think their defense is mostly gonna have to perform a bit better than I'm expecting it to. But I'm gonna slightly lean Eagles, but I am not touching this game with a 10-foot pole betting wise at all in this one. The Sunday night game, Falcons Vikings. This is going to be this will be an interesting game, I think. So obviously the Vikings last week did not look good. Mainly JJ McCarthy looked like a disaster for 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, you just saw the body language, the way the Vikings were even running the ball. They just had a shot of confidence injected in them. It looked like, and McCarthy played great in the fourth quarter. I do think that'll translate over. You would think in a way at home, Sunday Night Football, your home debut, primetime game, all the pressure is going to be on you. But I feel like he got a good amount of pressure lifted off from last week, especially considering the fact he came from behind to win the game. I think they're going to let McCarthy sling it a bit more, just kind of let the offense be a bit more. I'm not the offense be loose, but not in a bad way, but let McCarthy, kind of be a bit more loose with the ball, not necessarily, making stupid decisions, but I mean, making, just not being as conservative, basically, I feel like. Like, for example, the end of the first half against the Bears, there's like 11 seconds left. Most coaches are letting their quarterback try to get a shot or two to get your field goal unit closer or your field goal kicker closer. Kevin O'Connell has settled for the long field goal, shows a potential lack in McCarthy. If they're in that situation this game, I think Kevin O'Connell is going to let McCarthy take some shots, for example. So, I think they're just going to let JJ McCarthy let him loose a bit more. On the other end, the Falcons, tough loss against the Bucs week 1. Probably should have gone to overtime, but tough miss for Younghoe Koo there. Although the Bucs did miss a field goal with McLaughlin. I think he actually missed an extra point too. I might be wrong on that, but I know he at least missed a field goal. So you can argue it evened out there. I think Drake London's going to be playing in this one, so that's a boost to the Atlanta offense. I really like Michael Penix. I liked what I saw at the end of last season. I thought he played really good against the Bucs too last week. The Vikings at home opener. I just trust them more. I think the Falcons defense will actually play a solid game in this one. I think there'll definitely be some, moments where it's like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to take some time for JJ McCarthy to settle in, like it did last week against the Bears. But I think their offense is going to, make some good adjustments, some good in-game adjustments as the game goes on. Maybe start off hot with an opening drive touchdown. Kevin O'Connell, really good game caller, really good game. Excuse me here. Really good game plan. That's what I'm trying to say. An adjuster as the game's progressing. I think they'll have a good mix of offense, running and passing, make it easy for McCarthy, but let them loose at the same time. I have them putting up 23. I just think their offense is going to overperform the Falcons' offense because I trust the Vikings' defense more. I think, I was just saying I like Penix. I still think he's, got a learning curve, and I think Brian Flores against a young, inexperienced quarterback his defense is going to make an extra play or two that's going to go a long way in winning the game. He likes to disguise a bunch of stuff, and the inexperience of Penix that could bite the Falcons here against the Brian Flores defense. What else? So yeah, I think the Viking defense will go a long way in why they win this game. And yeah, I do think the Falcons will get some offense. They'll have some drives where they move the ball well. I've been scoring 17, so probably 2 touchdowns and a field goal. I feel pretty good with the Vikings scoring around 20 to 23, maybe like 27 max. The Falcons, I want to say I could see that. I feel good with 17, but I could see them scoring 23. This being a 3-point game. If the Falcons do win, I think their offense is just going to have to overperform how I'm excited to. Brian Flores, as good as he is, his defense can get torched sometimes. I feel like. So maybe Penix hits the deep shots, the big plays there. Bijan can get going maybe. Um, and the Falcons defense, I could see a scenario like I said where they just I think they'll play a decent game, but maybe they make JJ McCarthy look, you know, like not as bad as he was the first 3 quarters of the Monday night game, but you know, similar to that. That'll be a reason they could win the game. But I feel pretty good with the Vikings in this one. I'm going to pick them to win this game, 23-20. What is the spread here? My recording thing's away. 3.5. So that's a tough one because like I said, I have the Vikings covering my score prediction here, but I there's definitely a scenario where they only win by 3. So they wouldn't cover it. I could see them winning by 4, like 24-20. So they cover. I wouldn't touch the spread in this one, but I feel pretty good with the Vikings money line straight up. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of water here. Okay, so this is one of 2 Monday night games. They're doing a doubleheader on Monday night. So the first one is Bucks and Texans. I almost said Bucks Falcons for whatever reason. Bucks Texans. I originally was gonna pick the Bucks because the Texans offense looked so bad last week, but then I'm like, I don't know. My guts just kind of tell me the Texans offense is a good game, gets back in gear. I don't think they'll by any means torch the Bucks. I think at most they'll put up 27. I was back and forth between like 20, 23, and 24 for the Texans. I settled on 23. Texans defense, I think, is going to play a really good game in this one. I know I have them allowing 20, so that's not a phenomenal game. But I think they'll probably have the Bucks contained to like 13 or 14 most of the game. The Bucks will get a late touchdown to make things really tight, maybe even tie things up. So that's where the 20 will come from. The Bucks defense, I think, will play a good game. I think there'll be a good mix of defense and offense in this one. I think both defenses will play good up until like the fourth quarter. It'll be like 17-13 or 17-10, something like that. And then both teams get a touchdown. Both teams, move the ball, get a field goal or two, things like that to up the score a bit. I think that's how this game's going to go. The Texans are favored by 2.5. I'm I guess I'm a bit surprised it's not like 1.5. I wouldn't even be too surprised if the Bucks ended up being favored. But not now, the line being 2.5, that'd be a dramatic shift. But the opening line, I wouldn't have been shocked if the Bucks were favored. I mean, they looked better than the Texans did last week. So the Texans defense looked good last week, at least for them, but their offense was not good. Had a chance to win the game there at the end, but the fumble killed them. I mean, we saw the Bucks offense at the start of the game, and Baker in particular was really shaky. Baker looked off, but then the second half they were moving the ball. Baker got in rhythm. Obviously, clutch touchdown drive at the end there. Bucks defense played well for the game for the most part last week. Like I said, I think this will be a lower scoring defensive battle. It'll be close throughout. Then the scoring gets upped a bit in the fourth quarter. Texans maybe get a field goal drive at the end of the game. Maybe as time expires, walk-off field goal. Field goal with not much time left. Maybe their defense forces a key shot. I don't know. My gut's just telling me Texans in this one marginally. So I'm going to pick them. I don't know. I guess my gut, even though the Bucks offense is better on paper, my gut's just kind of telling me the Texans offense bounces back in this one a bit. So I'm going to go with that. If the Bucks win the game, I think their offense is going to have to overperform a bit how I'm expecting it to, or their defense could really, well, again, like I said, I think they'll kind of the Texans in offense in check for a majority of the game, but if they can hold the Texans to like 17 or obviously even less, I think their chances to win the game shoot up dramatically. If they can hold the Texans to 17, actually, I think they'll for sure win the game. I think at minimum the Bucks score like I think at minimum 14, but honestly 17 I want to say. So yeah, I don't know. Their offense is going to have to overperform a bit. Maybe their defense makes a big play or two that changes the game, but I don't know. My gut's just telling me Texans offense kind of bounces back in this one. Their defense plays good, dramatic close finish. I'm going to roll with the Texans. Would not at all touch the money line or the spread in this game. Maybe, well, actually, I technically had the Bucks covering, so I only had them losing by 3. So, or actually, just kidding. They wouldn't cover because they'd have to lose by 2 or less. So, um, trying to think. Look at my notes here for the game. What did I miss here? I feel like I missed something. Hang on, give me a second here. Um, okay, nope, got everything. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Texans 23-20. Tight, dramatic game though. At least I think. And then the last game, Raiders or Chargers Raiders. This should be an entertaining game. I'm just going to trust the Chargers in this one. I think they're the better team. And, one thing about Jim Harbaugh, teams like the Raiders that are a respectable team could be a bit better than people were expecting this year. You usually, when you're the better team with Jim Harbaugh coaching your team, you usually take care of business. So I think that's going to happen in this one. Chargers offense, I think, will have a good game. I almost had them at 24. I think the Chargers defense is going to play really well this game. The Raiders offense, I think, is going to kind of struggle for most of this game. I think they'll be around like 13, 14 points most of this game. They'll get a touchdown late to make it a one-score game, make it interesting, make it closer. The Chargers hold on. That's kind of how I see the game playing out. Chargers in control most of it. Raiders score late, make it interesting with the Chargers hold on. Chargers favored by 3 on the road. That seems about right. But I wouldn't be too shocked if the Raiders won this game. I mean, they looked pretty good against my team last week. Again, the Raiders, as I mentioned, could be sneaky team, better than some people are expecting this season. But the Chargers, I just think, are better than them. And like I just said, when you're the better team with Jim Harbaugh, you usually take care of business. I think they get a better offense and defense. So I'm going to pick them. I also think coaching is a bit better on the Chargers there. I guess the Harbaugh Pete Carroll game, the two like seemingly hate each other, can never escape each other. So that'll be maybe interesting on that point. Um, let's see what else to the game. So yeah, if the Raiders do win, their offense is going to have to overperform how I'm expecting it. Because like I said, I do think they'll be in contain most of the game from the Chargers defense. So I think the Raiders offense will have to overperform a bit. Maybe Gentry gets going in this game, could help them win. Raiders defense, my gut's just telling me 24, maybe at minimum, at absolute minimum 20 for the Chargers, but I honestly like 23. Raiders defense will have to overperform a bit if they win. I know my gut's just telling me Chargers. I think like I said, in control. Raiders score late, make it close. The Chargers hold on. I don't know. That's what my gut's telling me. I feel pretty confident with the Chargers straight up in this game. I think they'll cover the spread, but I'll probably just bet their money line. I think it'll be an entertaining game though. Both Monday night games should be good. But yeah, gonna roll with the Chargers 27-20 in this one. Okay, so that is all of my week 2 score predictions here. Uh Dylan and I are gonna try later to talk about more. Well, I guess I'm having my score predictions here, but we're gonna talk about preview all the games, and I guess Dylan will make his picks, and I'll kind of give my analysis too, because I'm already making my picks here. So be on the lookout for that if you're interested. But yeah, I will end the video here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in, and yeah, take it easy, guys. Thank you.